The Great Lakes Basin is a vast, complex ecosystem that contains almost 20% of the world's fresh water. But vast does not mean invincible. And currently, more than 180 invasive species threaten native plants, fish, and mussels in the 5 lakes and the watersheds that they support. Joining us now to examine the threats and possible solutions, Becky Cudmore. She's manager of the Asian Carp Program at Fisheries and Oceans Canada. Mark Gaydon, Communications Director and Legislative Liaison with the Great Lakes Fishery Commission. Nick Mandrak, Associate Professor, Department of Biological Sciences at the University of Toronto. And Janice Gilbert, Wetland Ecologist, Co-Chair of the Ontario Phragmites Working Group. And it's good to welcome all of you here to TVO, I think for the first time, everybody. Yes. Yeah, nice to have you all here. Okay, that little background here. Earlier this month, the Great Lakes Public Forum was taking place here in the capital city of Ontario, looking at the state of the Great Lakes. One of the things that we all learned as a result of that forum was the invasive species that are truly problematic right now to the future of the Great Lakes. Invasive species. Let's go around here and find out what you're all talking about. Do you want to start us off, Becky? When we talk about this, tell me one thing you're referring to.
I'm talking about species that aren't native to the Great Lakes, so that they were brought here by human intervention of some way and cause a lot of ecological and economic devastation when they arrive.
Janice, name names. Like what?
Name names? Well, the one that I'm most concerned about right now is Phragmites australis. It's a very problematic invasive species on the interface of the lake and the shoreline. But there are many others. There's the, I believe you're going to hear tonight about the Eurasian carp.
Yep.
That's a significant threat to our Great Lakes. So we have the gobies, we have the quagga and the zebra mussels. We have a whole, I could sit here for hours and
the
go
list
on.
goes on.
Yes, it does.
Nick, you called it the Eurasian carp, and then I've heard you talk about the Asian carp.
Asian carps.
Same thing?
Same thing, yes.
Okay.
And we're actually talking about 4 species of Asian carps that are found in Eurasia and within their native range, and includes the bighead, silver, grass, and black carps.
Huh. Mark, what else would you add to that list?
Naming names, probably the worst of the invaders has come in as the sea lamprey. One of the ones that is a poster child for everything that's wrong with invasive species. They came into the Great Lakes from the Atlantic Ocean through shipping canals. And what's problematical about the sea lamprey is they attach to fish with a suction cup mouth, and they bore a hole through the scales and skin of the fish and feed on the fish's blood and body fluids. What's gotten people's attention about the lamprey when they invaded is, number one, they leave big gaping wounds that are quite evident on the fish, and number two, they drove the fish populations down quite substantially. So the lamprey is probably the first and arguably the worst of the species that have come into the system, and is emblematic of everything that invasive species do to the Great Lakes.
Becky, when we talk about these things being a threat to the Great Lakes, a threat to do what?
Well, usually invasive species have a suite of ecological characteristics that make them good invaders. They're tough, they're adaptable, they grow quickly and outgrow any potential predators. They reach large population sizes very quickly. So all of that makes them really good competitors for food and space. And in that kind of competitive environment, a lot of our native species are not winning.
Can I make a confession to you?
Yes.
Before, about 20 minutes ago, I'd never heard of a Phragmite. I did not know what that is. But Sheldon, could you bring a picture up of one so everybody else who's...
You're not alone. Don't feel
I'm glad
bad.
to hear you say that. I'm glad to hear you say I'm not the only one who doesn't know what a Phragmite is.
Yes.
But how do they affect the ecosystem in such a negative way?
Oh, there's the Vanna White of Frag, Lindsay Bennett.
What are we looking at there?
Yes, she was assisting me about, that was back in 2007.
And what's going on there?
So that Phragmites there is over 5 meters tall. It was a really healthy crop. And usually that's about the peak of the height. You can see it was a really high nutrient site, but you can get into Phragmites that dense that's between 3 and 4 meters tall, and that's not an uncommon thing. They just take over the ecosystem. Once they get established, what they're doing is developing below ground the roots and rhizomes, and once that gets established, they just go nuts, the exponential growth. And nothing can outcompete them, not our cattails, not our willows, not even woody shrubs. Huh. They'll basically overtake the whole ecosystem. And that's why they're such an incredibly invasive plant.
Sheldon, bring the map up if you would. Let's see where Phragmites find themselves in the province of Ontario, and as we can say, I mean, mostly in the south and east, but even up north of Superior, you see them as well.
And there's some dots missing there. So
How are they spread?
Well, basically through the interior, it's our transportation corridors, the roads. And there was a really nice study that came out of Quebec in 2005 that showed a direct link between construction of roads through the province and the spread of Phragmites. Another way it's spreading around, well, that's the main way, because what happens is heavy equipment will go into an infested area, do the work, they load the construction equipment on the flatbeds, and they take it elsewhere in the province, and they don't clean off the viable plant parts.
Okay.
So that's why we're seeing it along a lot of our roads, and what's really bothersome to me is if you go up to Cottage Country now, it's up Highway 11, Old 69, 400, moving north, along those transportation corridors. Once it gets there, then it can, the seeds can be blown about a 10-kilometer radius from there. So they can land in moist sediment and get established.
How do you get rid of them?
How do you get rid of them? Well, it's not easy once they're established. If it's a small cell and it's just starting, folks are spading. So basically they're removing the standing parts that take the nutrients down to the roots and rhizomes. Drowning if you can, if you've got sufficient water depths. But if you're talking hundreds of acres of thick Phragmites, that's not viable solution. So right now we're working with our hands tied behind our backs because we use a herbicide. And the reason we do that is because that will penetrate down through the plant, down to the roots and rhizomes and kill the below ground structures.
Will it hurt the ecosystem as well, though?
Not where the Phragmites is. I mean, it's the native species are already gone, basically. So where it's really thick frag, that's all we have to deal with. Where we're careful is around the edges where there's still native plants or where it's just getting established. And then you can apply the herbicide in various ways to reduce the collateral damage to the native.
Okay, if you thought that looked strange, I got more strange video for you. Ready?
Okay.
Sheldon, let's roll this. Want to see what Asian carp look like? Holy cow. Becky, what are we seeing here?
Well, what you're seeing here are silver and bighead carp, probably mostly silver carp. These are one of the Asian carp species, and they're being startled by the boat and probably shocked a little by the electrofishing gear there, and they leap out of the water.
That is astonishing.
It
Any idea what body of water that was we were looking at there?
No, I don't know, but I'm going to guess it's along the Mississippi River Basin somewhere.
Mississippi River. So in the States, probably?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes. It wouldn't be Canadian waters.
We're not that bad yet.
Well, we're not even close to that yet,
Okay.
which is great news. We do see things like that video, and it really makes us not want to see these in Canada.
Have you found any of these in Canadian waters yet?
We have found a species of Asian carp in Canadian waters, grass carp. We have a program with Fisheries and Oceans Canada since 2012 where we are being very proactive with invasive species. Lessons learned from things like Phragmites and sea lamprey that have become established. The idea with the Asian carp program is to be much more proactive and focus on preventing their arrival in the first place. As Janice said, it's really tough to deal with an invasive species once it's well established in the system. So the goal is to actively seek out potential Asian carp in our waters and get them out immediately.
Sheldon, can you roll that video one more time? Because I want you to talk about whether or not you've had any up close and personal experience with these things. Look at this.
Yes. So I have, so Dr. Mandrak and I were invited down as part of an international contingency to Peoria, Illinois, and we were brought on board a boat to see firsthand. And before that, we had seen this on video, and you watch it, and it's pretty incredible. But to be on the boat, for those fish coming at my head, and thanks to Nick, he actually punched one out of the air before it hit me in the head.
Nick, you're a hero.
I will be forever grateful. But he didn't get the one that hit me in the shin, and all I can say is extremely unpleasant. My leg was sore for days. So you're
Just from the impact?
Just from the impact of that fish. You're on a moving boat, going at a good speed. The fish is 15-pound fish, and it hits you. It's very unpleasant, and you can imagine, and what we could imagine is, if this was Canadian waters, how would this impact boating, angling, water skiing, kayaking, canoeing?
Not to mention other wildlife in the water.
And exactly. So it was a great field trip in the sense that it really spurred both of us, I think, to say we don't want these in Canada.
Right. How big can they get?
They can get to be about 40 kilograms. The average size in the US is probably about 10 kilograms. But these are massive fishes, and the one thing is they grow very quickly. So within their first year of life,
Look at the size. How big are those?
those are about 20 kilograms.
Okay, for imperial people, what does that mean?
About 40 pounds.
40 pounds, okay.
Yes. And those are grass carp. And so the silver carp, big head carp, and grass carp all grow to that size.
When did you guys find out when the Asian carp first arrived in North America?
It arrived in the 1960s as the result of bringing the various species over to help out in aquaculture industries in the U.S. And not to be raised as a food fish, but rather to control pests that were in, say, the channel catfish aquaculture industry. So the interesting thing about the species, they have very specific prey items. So the grass carp obviously feeds on wetland plants. The silver carp feeds on microscopic plants like algae, and the bighead carp feeds on microscopic animals. The black carp, a fourth species that we really haven't talked about yet and is not as far up the Mississippi as the other three species, is a snail eater. So it was brought in to control snails in aquaculture facilities in the U.S.
So we actually introduced these species to our water systems.
We brought them over deliberately. We put them in contained facilities that once they were flooded over, the fishes were released into the wild.
That seems in hindsight like a really dumb thing to have done.
Yes, and we've done it many times, and we have yet to learn our lesson.
How many fertile ones does it take to populate a lake, in your view, Becky?
Well, we've done some modeling looking at the biological and ecological characteristics of bighead and silver carp. And the work suggests that it would take as many as 10 individuals, 10 females, and a similar number of males to be in one area at one time to have a greater than 50% chance at establishing a population. So a lot fewer than one would think. Right. And unfortunately, the biology of these Asian carp species, they're very similar to salmon in that they like to run up a river. So the queue would allow for any Asian carp in the area to meet up at a river. So not good news, but the idea is then to make sure we don't get that many in the first place.
And I can't remember if one of you addressed this, but is there a natural predator of this species out there?
There isn't. The issue with these Asian carps is that they grow quite quickly. So they'll grow to about a foot long in their first year of life, which means they quickly outgrow the mouth size of any potential predator.
How do you get rid of them?
Yeah, well, as Jenna said, good question. The idea for us is to prevent establishment. So we are really focused here in Canadian waters on doing early detection surveillance, using science that tells us what areas, what habitats they might be in, and going and actively looking for them using a variety of gear. If we do come across them, we get them out of the system and make sure there's none there.
How do you get them out? You can't shut the door. What do you do?
So, well, we can shut the door in a couple of ways by looking at what are the potential pathways. So spread from the U.S., so we are relying on our American partners for the electrical barrier for keeping down the population fronts. They don't move forward and spread on their own. On the Canadian side, two of the species have been found historically in the live food trade. And so one way to shut the door is to make these species illegal, and we've done that. We have new aquatic invasive species regulations that came into force last year and does not allow live Asian carp to be imported into the country.
Is Mark one of the American partners you're banking on to help you do what you do?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Mark's
Mark,
a
how
key
well are you
colleague.
doing?
Well, we started working on this in earnest really in the mid-1990s when some legislation was passed in the United States to construct a electrical barrier on a man-made canal in Chicago, which is the most likely pathway for these species to swim from the Mississippi Basin into the Great Lakes Basin. It took an awful lot of work and some Congress to open up its wallet and actually pay for this electrical barrier. Today, it's a large barrier system now, about 1,000 feet long.
Does it work the way I suspect it does, which is a fish bumps into it and it repels it?
More or less, yeah. So fish will sense the electricity and turn around. Now, if you're, say, a fish larvae or something that doesn't have the ability to turn around, you could float through the barrier from the Great Lakes into the Mississippi system, which has been one of the criticisms. It's a one-way barrier preventing the movement from the Mississippi into the Great Lakes. But more or less, that's exactly right. It'll sense the electricity and then not proceed any farther. If that barrier weren't there, that electrical barrier is just outside of Chicago, if it weren't there, these fish would have a straight shot from the Mississippi River system into the Great Lakes. Mother Nature produced a natural divide between the Great Lakes and the Mississippi until about the late 1800s when we blasted through and built this canal, and now it's a pathway.
That video we saw earlier of the carp just, you know, mayhem, diving out of the waters and so on, is it too late to clean that up?
Well, I can tell you it got the attention of the policymakers in the United States when we started seeing that kind of video in the mid-1990s. We got warned by our friends from the Mississippi River. Basically, we got them, you don't want them, and you should be paying attention to this. And it is eye-popping when you look at the size of these fish, how many a female can produce. They're very fecund. They produce a lot of young. They eat a lot. And it's very rare that you get an invasive species that's literally in your face, jumps out of the water and hits you. And the biologists who were doing work in the river continue to this day to suffer injuries, and boaters the like. So it's almost like they need hazard pay to be out there. And it does make great YouTube video. I will certainly admit to enjoying watching the YouTube, but I wouldn't want to be hit by one of these, and I've not been, as Becky has been.
Yeah.
So that's what's gotten people's attention.
Gotcha. When we went around the table right off the top, you talked about the sea lamprey. And let's, Sheldon, if you would, let's bring up some video of that, because we do want to see what that looks like. This is video of a sea lamprey in an aquarium. And, okay, Mark, you want to take us through this? What are we looking at?
You can see the business end of the lamprey right there. It's a suction cup mouth. That mouth is sucking onto glass, and it's as strong as a suction cup. You'd actually need to break the seal to get that mouth off. So imagine if you were a fish and had one of those attached to you. In the middle is a sharp tongue that flicks its way out like a drill, and it bores its way through the scales and skin of a fish and sucks on the blood and body fluids. So we call them vampires of the Great Lakes because they're blood feeders. They don't attack warm-blooded creatures, so not to worry if you're out swimming. But if you're a cold-blooded creature like a fish, you're not going to have a lot of defenses against that lamprey attaching to you.
And how are they threatening the Great Lakes?
They are threatening the Great Lakes because they're a top-down predator, and as has been discussed already by my fellow guests here, one of the things that makes an invasive species so problematic is that once they get into the system and make the lakes home, there's not a lot of things naturally in the system that keep them in check. So the lamprey, like the Asian carp, does not have any natural predators in the lakes or things that would prey upon the lamprey in any numbers. So they have basically an open buffet. It's lots of food in the lakes.
An open buffet, that's a nice way to put it.
And lots of spawning habitat.
Any success at all in keeping their numbers down?
In the outset of this program, you noted that there are about 180 non-native species in the lakes. We can control one, the sea lamprey. That's the only one that we have at least a basin-wide control program for. There are others more localized, like the Phragmites, where you can go in and have, through some very labor-intensive efforts, remove them. But lamprey we actually can control, and it's because we got very lucky in the 1950s and discovered a pesticide that's selective to lamprey. So you ask the question, if you go in and try and remove Phragmites with the herbicide, does it affect other things? My guess is the answer is yes. It's not selective to just the Phragmites. With the lamprey, we actually have something selective to the lamprey. It'll kill the sea lamprey and leave the fish unharmed in the river. And that's what we've been using since the late 1950s to control lamprey. Today, we've reduced the populations by about 90% in most areas of the Great Lakes. We've gone from losing about 100 million pounds of fish every year to lamprey to less than 10 million pounds of fish. So that's a remarkable turnaround, and it's because of the fact that we actually do have a control technique. But for the other species in the lakes, we don't have control techniques. That's why we're so worried about the Asian carp and are trying to move heaven and earth from getting into the lakes to begin with. Other than that, we won't have a lot of tools.
Gotcha. I think I mentioned off the top that we spent a whole week recently focusing on the Great Lakes, a lot of the challenges, a lot of the problem, a lot of why they're the most glorious waterways, some think, in the whole world. And I want to play a little clip right now of part of the conversation we had around climate change as part of that week-long of programs. Sheldon, roll the tape, please, if you would.
And so we're seeing the spread of these invaders, invasive warm water fishes, throughout Ontario, moving northwards.
This is the smallmouth bass, for example?
The bass,
Why is
yeah.
that a problem if it's more proliferating?
It's a problem because they're such voracious predators. So they consume a lot of the minnows. They consume the fish that the walleye and lake trout eat. And they also so they compete with them, but they also predate on their young. And so that's declining our native cool water and cold water fisheries that are important to our Canadian identity.
Okay, Nick, here's what I need to understand, because the smallmouth bass, which she was talking about, that's not an invasive species, I don't think, right? That is natural to our Great Lakes.
It is native to the Great Lakes, but it is invasive to some inland lakes. And over the last 100 years, humans have tended to move it into lakes where it was not originally native. And they've done this because they wanted to increase recreational activities. Perfect example of this is Algonquin Park. Smallmouth bass are now found throughout Algonquin Park, but were not there 150 years ago. And in fact, if you want to determine what the original rail lines looked like in Algonquin, you look at the distribution of smallmouth bass, because that's how they introduced them. They brought them in milk cans and dumped them at every bridge crossing on the rail line to introduce them into the park.
And is it problematic that they're in Algonquin Park?
Well, they have undoubtedly had a negative impact on the native species of Algonquin, and that impact happened so long ago that now that we're actually monitoring the park, we're probably monitoring what's happened since that impact, and we're not actually capturing that impact because it's a shifting baseline.
Got it. Are you at all concerned that we are focusing too much on one kind of invasive species and not enough on another?
Well, let's just say they're all problematic, and some are certainly more problematic than others. Some I think we can do something about, like Phragmites, and others I don't know that we can do much about, like quagga or zebra mussels. I could be wrong there, but I think once they're in the system, they're in the system. With the plants that are at the edge, we can reach them. We can attempt to keep them under control. From my perspective, we can't ignore them. We do have some methods that do work, and we need to implement them.
I guess one of the things I'm trying to figure out is that there are a finite number of dollars available for this fight. And all of you represent sort of different aspects of this fight. And how does one figure out what the hierarchy ought to be? Becky, you want to take a shot at that?
Well, the best approach is to do risk assessments to assess the likelihood of species arriving, surviving, establishing, spreading, and what impacts they may be. And then that way you can establish a prioritized list of species that you need to focus on. You need to look at both the ecological and the economic impacts that the species has. And that's the best way you need to deal with deciding where your limited dollars go.
There's, I guess, I mean, I was going to say a top 10 list, but in fact there's a top 180 list here for what to tackle. How do you know what's at the top of the list?
I think the best way to approach it too is to think about the pathways and close those pathways, and therefore you're getting anything that might come in the future through that pathway. So the three main, maybe four main pathways that we know about, and we're not sitting around scratching our heads wondering how they're getting here. We do know in general how invasive species get in. The first is through ballast water ships coming in from foreign destinations, so oceanic ships. The second is the trade of live organisms, so somebody might get a bright idea to import a species for the pet trade or aquariums. The third are canals and waterways like the Chicago Canal to swim their way in. And the fourth is through the recreational activities or transportation that has already been talked about. So if you can close those doorways, you're closing the doorway to the species that you already know are on the way, like Asian carp, and anything else that might be on the way in the future. That's the ticket, if you ask me, on how you would deal with invasive species. Okay,
let's finish up on this. People watching this program all over the province of Ontario. Now, I know summer is behind us now, so the chances of there necessarily, of more people rather than fewer being on the waters and running into this is less now than it was, say, a couple of months ago. But having said that, the next season is never that far away, and people may want to have some idea of what they can do to help the good cause. So let's go around the table here. What can the public do here?
A lot, actually. There's a lot of organizations now on the Great Lakes, particularly Lake Huron, volunteers out there with their spades and cutting frag, and if nothing else, taking the seed heads off to deal with it. And from my perspective, that's the only way it's going to work for us to get it under control in the province. It has to be locally energized groups that are taking care of things. And where that is really important is once we get the big infestations under control, they're the eyes on the ground. They're the people that care about the shorelines and the wetlands in their backyards.
So you want everybody deputized to join you in this fight?
That would be lovely.
That would be lovely. Becky, how about you?
I agree. More eyes on the water, the better. Anyone who has spent time on the Great Lakes know how immense they are. I grew up on the Great Lakes. I love them. And I don't think I'm alone in that. So more eyes on the water, the better. We do encourage people to understand the threat invasive species pose to those Great Lakes, to learn to identify some key potential and current invaders. And we do have an amazing group in Ontario, the Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters. They have an invasive species awareness program and a hotline. So we do encourage people to take photos of species that they think may be of a potential invader, especially Asian carp, and to get in touch with them. And we welcome more surveillance out there.
Gotcha. Mark?
Contact your elected officials and tell them that these pathways need to be closed. We don't have to tolerate this. We know how they're getting here. We need to fund invasive species prevention programs. We need to assess new species coming in for their risk before they're allowed to come in. We have to presume that anything is guilty until we actually demonstrate that it's not going to cause harm. Fund lamprey control. It's effective and it's very cost effective. It's a $7 billion fishery and we spend a very tiny fraction on that to control the lamprey. But I would say get involved and let your elected official know that we shouldn't tolerate these new invasions. They cost taxpayers money.
Nick?
I think my fellow guests have said it all, but I would want to reinforce that some federal funding is coming to an end this year on Asian carps and is up for renewal. And I think, as Mark pointed out, the public need to be heard. They need to tell politicians that they are concerned about this.
So the Fisheries Minister, Dominic LeBlanc, have you got him on speed dial?
I don't, but I hope that Becky does.
Becky?
Well, we're in the process of looking at the options for the future, understanding that Asian carp are important to Canadians, to the stakeholders, as well as other invasive species in the Great Lakes. So, yeah, if people are concerned, we certainly do welcome that hearing the opinion.
And we welcome all of you to TVO today, and we thank you very much for this conversation. Thanks to Becky Cudmore from Fisheries and Oceans Canada, Nick Mandrak, Department of Biological Sciences at U of T Scarborough, Mark Aden, our friend from the States, Great Lakes Fishery Commission, thanks for coming up here from the state of Michigan, and Janice Gilbert from the Ontario Phragmites Working Group, who came here today from...
South of Tillsonburg.
South of Tillsonburg. So you had yourself a fine drive in.
I did indeed.
Except for the fact that the 401 was a complete and utter mess.
Now I know why I live over there.
Right on. Good to have you all here at
Thank
TVO
you
tonight.
very
Thanks so
much.
much, everybody.
Appreciate it.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit TVO.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.